Hi everybody and welcome back to this channel and to this INDESIGN course. In this video we're gonna talk about images. So how can we place them here in INDESIGN and all the tools and the options that we have about them. But first, as always, let's recap what we've seen in the last video. So let's open a new file. This preset file is okay, so let's go create. Here we are. So in the last lesson we've talked about table, so how to create them and how to work with them. So first of all, let's go up here on table and let's create one. So here we can find this menu with these options when we can decide how many rows and columns it's gonna have, and also the table style, which we haven't seen yet, but we're gonna see it soon in the next videos. So let's leave it like this: 4 rows, 4 columns, perfect, and okay. Alright, so now let's click and drag like this. Alright, so here we are, we have our table with 4 columns and 4 rows. So as we saw, we can write into every cells we have here. So each one of these rectangles is called cell. And to move into this table, so to go from one cell to another, we can either click in the cell we want or with tab button from the keyboard. So really easy and really fast. Alright, so let's see now what we can do with these cells. So how can we work with them? First of all, as soon as I go here on the left side of the first cell, this arrow shows up. And if I click here, I will have all the first row, so all the first line selected. And this way I can work with them at the same time. Same thing I can do with the columns. So as you can see now, as soon as I go here with my pointer, with my mouse, this black arrow shows up. And in a really quick way, I can select all the columns or the rows. So let's see which tools we have here. Here on the left, we have some options for the text inside of the cells. So we can choose which font we want to use and which font size. And then we can choose how to align our text. Same thing here. So we can also rotate our text. And then here we can add or delete some cells. So for example, I can add some rows. So now I have 6. And of course, I have to enlarge the frame. So this way I can see all my 6 rows. Here we are, so 4 columns, 6 rows, and of course we can also add columns and we can also delete them. So as you can see now, 5, 4, 3, so it's up to you, whatever you want, also depending on what you have to do with this table. Then we of course can color them, so for example blue, and we can also decide color for the stroke, so for the outline. Let's select the green. And let's increase a bit the size of it. Alright, so here we are. A blue fill with a green stroke. Then we have another important button. So here, as you can see, I have something that look like a table with these 2 cells. So in here we can decide what we want to work on. Now it's all selected, so I'm working on every side of my cell. But for example, if I'm gonna click here, whatever change I'm gonna do, it's not gonna affect that line, so that part of my cell. So for example, now I'm gonna change the stroke with a yellow. And as you can see now, the upper part here has not changed. So really helpful. Alright, so let's see something else. Of course, we can right click. And as you can see here, we have some options. So about the cell or about the whole table. Then we can also add and delete some cells or row and columns and so on. And same thing we can find up here on table. But also here we find a really interesting one, which is this one, convert the table to text. That means that if I have a text inside of the table, I can convert this table in a normal text. Or if I have a text, I can convert it in a table. So really interesting and really cool. Alright, so I would say now we are ready to begin with today's lesson. So let's close this document and let's open a new one. Alright, and let's open a new document from up here, File, New Document. Alright, so let's open this classic preset with portrait orientation. Alright, great. Perfect, here we are. So let's talk about images. So first of all, let's place an image. How can we do that? From here, File, Place. Alright, here we are in our folder. Let's just select the image, the picture we want to open, and let's go on Open. Alright, here it is, and as always, let's click and drag as much as we want. So this that we see here is the frame that's going to contain my picture, and we can create it as big as we want. So for example, like this. Alright. So perfect, this is our image. First important thing that we need to know about pictures is that they have two frames. So the blue one we just saw, and if we go here and click on the circle that we see, we have actually another frame which is more orange. So this orange line that we see here. And what is the difference between these two? So basically this frame here, so that we have when we click on this circle, is the frame that it's going to allow me to actually modify the picture, the image. So for example, if I want it smaller or I don't know, bigger, and then I can also do this and that, and I'm actually changing, like modifying the picture. Of course now in a really bad way, so it's not proportional at all. But let's do Ctrl Z, right? While instead this blue frame here is just like the frame that contains my picture. Because as we saw already, everything in InDesign needs a frame. So a text, a table, and also now images. So everything needs to be inside of a frame. But if you're going to modify this, we're not actually modifying the picture. In fact, if we click here, that's our picture. We are not modifying the dimensions of it. We are just changing the dimensions of the blue frame here. So the frame that actually allows us to see the picture that we have here on InDesign. So this is something really important to know about images. Right now, as you probably noticed, the quality of these pictures is not the best. That is something that we can actually set by right-clicking on the picture, display performance, and here we are, three different quality options. The high quality display, typical, and fast display. Which is the difference? So first of all, of course, the high quality allows us to see the picture in a good quality, so in a good way, but of course it can slow the program. So for example, if we have a big document with a lot of pages, a lot of elements on it and content, of course, if we set every picture with the high quality display, InDesign is gonna go slower and slower. The opposite result we're gonna have if we set the fast display. This way we don't see the picture, but on the other end, InDesign is gonna go well. It's not gonna be too heavy for the content and the elements we have, because with this solution, they're not gonna slow the program. And then we have the typical display. So usually the default option. So that's how we were seeing the image before with this quality. So it's really up to you, and depending on how big is your document, so how many pages, how many content, and so on. So right now we could actually use the high quality display because we just have this page with this image. So the program is not gonna be too full of content and elements, so it's not gonna go slow. Alright, let's talk about some more options that we see by right-clicking on the picture. So some of them are really easy, so we can cut it or copy it, we can zoom in it, and we can also transform it, so move it, scale it, rotate it, or flip it. options that we can also find up here in the control bar. We're gonna see later. And for example, so if you wanna match these two frames again, so the blue one and the picture, we can go on fitting and do, for example, fit frame to contact. So the blue frame is gonna adapt to the dimensions of the picture. And here we are. So we see the picture now as we saw it before when we placed it here on the document. Then we also have different fitting options. So again, it's up to us, whatever we want to do with picture. We find here again display performance and some more options, like for example, we can lock it. What does it mean? So we see here now we have the lock icon. Then now we can't move this picture at all. So as you can see, we can't even click on it. So for example, it's really helpful when I have my page, my document full of content. So this way, when I'm working on one picture, I can lock the other, so the other element, and I'm not gonna do some damages or whatever. I'm just gonna work on my picture. So really helpful. And now, of course, if we right click on the picture, we are not actually really clicking on it because we can't select it. So in order to unlock it, we have to go on Object and unlock all on Spread. So here we are. We can now select our picture because we just unlocked it. Alright, so let's now see some tools that we have up here in the bar control. So in the first two boxes here on the left, I have the location of my pictures, X and Y location. And I can also move it by clicking on here. Of course, it's faster with my pointer. Then we have the width and height. They're referring to the frame, the blue frame that we see here. So as you can see, if I, for example, increase the measure here and also here, the blue frame is gonna change. So it's about this frame here. Let's match it again. So fitting, fit frame to content. Then here we have the scale percentage. So it's about the picture. And I can see that it's perfectly proportional right now because these two parameters match. So always keep an eye on it. Alright, then as we see here from this icon here, we can rotate our picture or we can share the angle. So for example, like this or on the other side. Then again, we can rotate it. Alright, or we can flip it, so horizontally or vertically. And if you notice, every time we click these buttons here, so if you want to rotate it or flip it, also this P, this letter here, is going to change. You see now I have like a backwards P, and if I go here with my pointer, it's actually telling me what happened with the picture. So it's telling me that it's flipped horizontally. And if I right click on it, I can also clear transformations. So it means that I have my original picture. So it's really helpful because after maybe some changes, I don't remember how it was. And with this letter here, I can actually see what's going on. So really helpful. Then here I can decide to put some color. So on the stroke, so for example, blue. Here it is, but I could also decide to put to fit some color here in the frame. So let's see, for example, a red, maybe with 30% of intensity. All right. And here we are. If I increase the frame here, I can see the color. So it's not, of course, in the picture, but it's in the frame that contains the picture. And then next we have some tools about images and text. And again, some fitting options here. So the same we can find by right clicking and going here. And then some align options that we could see when we have more than one pictures in the document. Alright, so let's now see how we can place more than one image into the document. So first of all, we can also delete this one. Alright, and let's go on File, Place. Alright, and then let's select the picture we wanna open. So for example, these 4 pictures, and let's click on open. Alright, so now as you can see, we have the picture plus the number of how many pictures we are placing in InDesign. You can also choose which one open first with the arrows from the keyboard. So we can easily move through the pictures and choose the one we want to open first. So we have different ways to open this, so to place them. First of all, as always, we can click and drag. So 1, then the second, then the third, and then the last one. So this is the classic way, so we can place them one by one, but we can also place them all together doing this. So let's click, drag, and then again with the arrows from the keyboard, we can create some cells in which the picture is gonna be placed, you know? So now I have 4 pictures. So for example, I could do something like this. So with the arrows, I am creating 4 cells, and as soon as I drag it, here we are, I have my pictures into these cells. So I have my pictures placed in the order I want to. So this is another way, and it's really great if you want the pictures all at the same distance between each other. And let's now see those tools that we find in the bar control up here on the right. So that actually regards the alignment between multiple pictures. So for example, we can align them to the centers, so horizontally or vertically, or at the left or right edges, and then at the top edges or bottom edges. Alright, so let's move them a bit. So for example, like this. Alright, now let's select them all and let's try one of these. So for example, align horizontal centers. So as you can see now, all the centers of those pictures are aligned. We can also find some of this tool in a panel that we find up here on Window, Object and Layout, Align. So here we are. We can also drag it out, alright, and we can close this other one. Alright, so here we are, we can see some tools. So align objects, distribute objects, and spacing. So let's select them all, alright, and let's try this one, so distribute vertical space. Alright, so as you can see now, they all got closer, and let's see what happens if they are actually not so close to each other. So let's see what happens if they have some distance between them. So for example, like this, let's select them all, and let's try it again. Here we are, so they're now at the same distance to each other. And we could also do now the align horizontal centers. So here we are. They're perfectly equidistant to each other and all the centers are aligned. Alright, so from here we can distribute the objects, so the image in this case, and all the alignments we want. Alright, so one last thing I want to show you is how to place a picture inside of a creative form. So for example, inside of a polygon. So we can also now delete this picture. Alright, let's right click on it and let's select the polygon tool. As I already shown you, when we have a polygon tool, we can also double click on it. And from this menu, we can decide some settings for this shape we're gonna create. Right now, let's leave it like this. Okay, let's click and drag. And if you want to create a proportion shape, we have to click on Shift from the keyboard. So like this. Alright. And now let's see how we can place an image inside of it. So again, up here on File, Place. Let's select the picture and open. Alright. So right now I have my picture and a little picture icon at the pointer, you see? But as soon as I go here inside of this shape, 2 breaks show up at the side of the icon image. So that means that we are in the right place. So that means that we are inside of something. And here we can click, and here we are. Of course, now it's really zoomed in. So if we click at the picture and if we zoom out, we can see how big our picture is now. So let's reduce it as much as we want, of course. And here we are. We now have our image inside of this shape. So really cool, and of course you can create every shape you want, so it's completely up to you. Alright, so for this lesson it's all. So today we actually worked with images that are also known as raster graphics. In the next lesson, we're going to talk about vector graphics. So the graphics we can create manually. So for example, with the pen tool or the pencil tool, or also with line tool, and so on. So I'm going to show you everything about those, how can we create them, and how can we work with them. So stay tuned, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Bye bye everybody!